The pick is in.
The Atlanta Falcons have made a selection in the 2024 NFL Draft. Alongside Locked On College Football host Spencer McLaughlin, I am Tanisha Batiste, and we are joined by Aaron Freeman, host of Locked On Falcons, to break down the Falcons selecting Ruke Orhorhoro with the 35th pick. So, Free, now that the shock is worn off that the Falcons took a skill position player in the first round, for the fourth year in a row, we actually turn the page to defense. So, Aaron, what does this D tackle coming off the board, the first of the night, in fact, bring to this Falcons D?
Well, they're getting a guy with size, power, and athleticism. He's probably a little rawer than maybe some of the D tackles that went off the board immediately after them. I know the big question mark with the Falcons is pass rush, and certainly you can argue that maybe Johnny Newton and Braden Fisk that went picks right after the Falcons traded up for Ruke Orhorhoro maybe bring a little bit more juice there. But I think Orhorhoro brings maybe a little bit more size, physicality for this Falcons 3-4 front, and maybe some versatility to be able to kind of find more of a role, on early downs with Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata, and maybe keeping those guys a little bit fresher. So I think this gives the Falcons a nice piece in their rotation immediately, and a player that has enough tools and potential that maybe down the road when, Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata are moving on in a couple of years, maybe a difference maker up front.
Indeed. And how important is it for the former Clemson Tiger to be able to be under the tutelage of guys like Grady Jarrett and guys like David Onyemata, to your point, with him being raw, to be able to kind of build up and not have to compete or really contribute at the highest level day one?
Yeah, I think really having David Onyemata in front of him helps him a lot, because I think their games are kind of similar, and we saw David Onyemata really develop in New Orleans, before coming to Atlanta. And so I think if Ruke is just can be a sponge to basically see how David Onyemata has turned himself into a similar kind of raw piece of clay coming from Canada into the NFL, he'll be able to find success in this league.
For more on the Falcons, subscribe to Locked On Falcons on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So, Spencer, what's the best thing that you see in Orhorhoro in terms of what he can bring to this Falcons defense on the interior?
Just pure unbridled athleticism. 6'4", just under 300 pounds, and clocks in at a 4.9 40-yard dash. You just don't see guys that have that sort of straight line speed when you have that much size on the interior of the defensive line. And maybe he is someone who could play a couple of different spots up front with those athletic traits. But I think that's the upside that the Falcons are seeing here, because Johnny Newton was widely considered to be the top defensive tackle on the board coming into day 2 of the NFL draft. But the Falcons have to have looked at those athletic traits and said, no, that's too good to pass up. We feel like we can polish him a little bit more and make him as productive as Illinois' Johnny Newton can be. So I think that's where the Falcons' heads are at.
For continuing coverage of the 2024 NFL Draft, subscribe to Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. As part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.